But first tonight, across the country, this monsoon has spread havoc of a kind rarely seen. And at the heart of it could be the potential of climate change. In the last 24 hours, these are some of the images from across the country. At least 27 people killed in Kerala because of flash floods, 11 NDRF teams there. Uttarakhand, Maharashtra and Gujarat have also witnessed flash floods and landslides in the last 24 hours. Char Dham in Uttarakhand has been one of the places affected by the heavy downpours. Cars, as you can see there, underwater in the Char Dham area in Uttarakhand. Delhi also witnessing continuous rainfall since the morning, and other parts of the country are also witnessing unseasonal rainfall well into the month of October. Our focus, though, is on Kerala, because this is the state which has seen the worst battering yet again for the third time in 4 years of flash floods. It raises serious questions, particularly about the vulnerability of areas along the coastline of this country and along the Western Ghats. 27 people have died, and reports now suggest that the government is planning to open up dams because Wednesday more rain is being predicted. Take a look.
The big deluge. After incessant rainfall and floods, a trail of destruction. 3 devastating days for Kerala. And these defining images narrate the flood horror. The chilling video from Idukki captures a father and son from Gujarat clinging onto the wheels of a bus in a desperate bid to save themselves from swirling water. Thankfully, the conductors spotted the duo and dragged them to safety. The miracle rescue caught on camera. India Today continues its coverage from the disaster zone.
The monsoon mayhem in Pathanamthitta district has caused a havoc almost situation. Look at this, one of the main highway. The highway which connects one district to another is almost now submerged and flooded. And water, it's not a stagnant water, it's still flowing. The river, Manimala river, when started overflowing, the water level increased and now it reached up to 5 to 6 feet in certain places. And look at how national highway in fact has completely submerged.
कल 3 बजे से धीरे धीरे आने लगा और रात को 8 बजे से बढ़ गया, इतना हो गया.
Yesterday onwards the water rising.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you get any information, any warning to go to the safer places?
No, till now I didn't get any warning.
There was no warning at all?
Yeah.
Kottayam, Idukki and Alappuzha continue to remain the worst affected areas. Relief operations are in full swing. Several columns of Indian Army have been deployed in Kottayam, Kuttikal and Wayanad, along with special NDRF teams. Choppers from Naval Air Station INS Garuda was deployed to drop relief material in Kottayam and Idukki. Some images of hope floating in the high water. This couple from Alappuzha, however, couldn't be deterred from tying the knot. They sailed 500 meters on a traditional copper cooking vessel for their wedding at a local temple. With Marina Jacinth in Thiruvananthapuram, Anna Jobi in Kochi and Ashutosh Mishra in Pathanamthitta, Bureau Report, India Today.
So is this a natural or a man-made disaster year after year that we are seeing in Kerala and indeed across the western coast of this country from Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka to Kerala? Jairam Ramesh, former Environment Minister, is joining me at the moment. Jairam, you've done a lot of work on this. How much do you think what is happening in Kerala, for example, year after year, recurring floods across the west coast, Western Ghats, are they man-made, or would you say it is still to be seen as a natural disaster?
No. I'm convinced that, these are man-made. This is not just in Kerala, but it extends on the entire west coast, the Western Ghats area, 6 states, This is entirely because of mining, it's because of construction, it's because of deforestation, it's because of the loss of natural forest cover. So it's entirely man-made, Rajdeep. These are, you can ascribe it to natural cycles, but fundamentally they are man-made.
You know, Mr. Ramesh, on Sunday morning you tweeted, whenever there is a natural disaster in Kerala, the Madhav Gadgil's Western Ghats Ecological Panel report of 2011 is recalled. A decade later, it remains unimplemented despite devastating floods in 2018 and 20. Now, over this decade, Jairam Ramesh, there has been a UPA government at the center, NDA government, state governments of different parties. The fact is, no one has implemented the recommendations of that report on critical issues like encroachments, like mining, deforestation. No progress has been made by the in this regard.
Well, as the report was submitted in 2011, it's still awaiting implementation. It was diluted somewhat when the Kasturi Rangan committee was set up to review what the Madhav Gadgil panel had done. What the Gadgil panel had done is to provide ecological protection to about 60% of the Western Ghats area, and the Kasturi Rangan panel reduced that 60% to something like 37%. The Gadgil panel was a democratic exercise. It was a bottom-up exercise. It was a scientific, participatory exercise, and the consequences of not implementing the panel's report, we are seeing year after year in different states, and most recently, we have seen in Kerala.
No, but you're still not, in a way, answering my fundamental question, Jairam Ramesh. When you refer to this Madhav Gadgil report, they suggested 64% of the area of the Western Ghats needs to be treated as ecologically sensitive. They called for the decommissioning of thermal power plants, dams, single-use agriculture in certain parts. Many believe this would damage livelihoods, affect power generation, and therefore the politicians and the locals in a way protested against it. If you implement the Gadgil report, the belief that the political class tells you is thousands of livelihoods will be lost.
No, Rajdeep, there is a nuance in the Gadgil panel which is missed in all the public discourse. The Madhav Gadgil's panel had recommended 3 levels of ecological protection. Level 1, level 2 and level 3. Level 1 was the highest. Level 2 was where developmental activity was allowed, and level 3 was even more developmental activity was allowed. So it's absolutely wrong to say that the Madhav Gadgil panel put a stop on development and would have meant loss of livelihoods, because he had very sensitively and very carefully calibrated these 3 different levels of ecological protection. And there was a core area, which is about 60% of the area, which would be completely protected. Now, the answer to natural disasters, Rajdeep, is no great rocket science. You need eco-protection and you need eco-restoration. If you don't have eco-protection, if you don't have eco-restoration, you will continue to see these types of natural disasters. The 2004 tsunami, for example, we lost the entire bioshield cover of mangroves, and we're still continuing to lose it. And we think that there are engineering solutions, there are developmental solutions. There are only nature-based solutions. But nature protects those who protect her.
No, but then that again brings me back to that central question. In 10 years, why has no government, either at the center or in states like Kerala, irrespective of the party in power, aggressively even tried to implement the Gadgil report? I'll give you the example of one of my home states of Goa. Illegal mining stopped by the Supreme Court. State government wants to back the mining lobby. There are tourism lobbies. Kerala also allegations made that these lobbies are backed by powerful politicians. When an all-party meeting was called in Kerala on the Gadgil report, most of them rejected it. Why are political parties reluctant, therefore, to confront these lobbies that are deforesting, doing illegal mining, making the Western Ghats vulnerable to the kind of flooding we are seeing in states like Kerala and Goa?
There is a mining lobby, there is a tourism lobby, there is a highway lobby, there is a construction lobby. Development has become the greatest lobby. There is no lobby for eco-protection. There is no lobby for eco-restoration, but there is a lobby for what we think is development. And this is simply unsustainable development, what is happening in the Western Ghats particularly. Western Ghats is only one area, but we are talking of the Western Ghats this evening. It's an eco-sensitive area. It's a very fragile area. And we are planning large number of hydel projects. We are planning large number of highways. We are planning mining. We are planning tourism projects without regard to ecological protection. And you're right, whether it's, this goes beyond political parties, it goes beyond governments. It's state government, central government. There is big money in development. There is no money in eco-restoration. But there's no money in eco-protection.
But there are those who are listening to you, Jairam Ramesh, who will say, how do you achieve the crucial balance between ecological protection and development? You need a balance. I mean, you were environment minister in the UP and you were criticized for being far too eco-sensitive and actually rejecting what many thought were important development projects. How do you achieve the right balance is the challenge.
Well, there is no formula. There's no textbook which tells you that this is the balance. You search for the balance. You make intelligent choices. But you make difficult choices, you make tough choices. And there are times, and I'll give you an example of a tough choice that got made almost 30 years ago in 1983, almost 40 years ago in 1983, when the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi went against the advice of her own party, went against the advice of the state government, which was then run by the CPM, and put a stop to the Silent Valley hydel project. And today, people are still remembering that courageous decision. And it is Silent Valley that we need the courage that characterized the Silent Valley decision. That's the example of a difficult choice that politicians are called upon to make. Unfortunately, every politician, me included perhaps, will say, we'll have something of this and something of that. When it comes to eco-restoration, when it comes to eco-protection, you have to make these difficult choices. It's a yes or a no. There are times in which you will say yes because livelihoods are involved. There are times in which you will say yes, maybe, and attach a lot of conditions. But there are areas, there are situations, there are circumstances where we have to say no, N-O. But we are not prepared to do that.
It's interesting, Jairam Ramesh, we are having this conversation just ahead of the big climate change summit, November 1st in Glasgow. Now, the devastating effects of climate change being witnessed not just in India, but across the world. A new report by the Climate Central giving an eye-opening perspective. This is the Chhatrapati Shivaji Museum in Mumbai today. If the temperature increases to 3 degrees, which is the current global warming path, the entire structure will drown. The report shows that the Space Center in Houston will be flooded if temperatures increase at 1.5 degrees. If temperatures increase at 3 degrees, it will be completely submerged. The Santa Monica Beach in Los Angeles will be flooded at 1.5 degrees and the pier will be underwater if temperatures increase at 3 degrees. The Boston Municipal Court will also see severe flooding at 1.5 degrees and 3 degrees temperature rise. So therefore, Jairam Ramesh, in the build-up to this climate change conference, even for Kerala, warnings being suggested. You are seeing cities like Kochi, where the projected sea rise is 1 to 3 feet by the end of the century, and the city could well be submerged. Many cities across the world vulnerable to a climate emergency.
Well, Mumbai is, Rajdeep. Mumbai is. The Sundarbans is. If there is one thing which science is robust about, there are many things on which we can have a debate on science. But on one thing, there is absolutely no disagreement on the science, is in the increase in mean sea levels on account of global warming and climate change. And for that, we need to implement our coastal regulation zone rules, the CRZ regulation, the CRZ rules, which were first enunciated in 91. They got amended in 2011. But we are moving merrily along as if these increase in mean sea levels means nothing to our coastal areas. And remember, we have a 7,500 kilometer long coastal area extending from West Bengal in the east all the way to Gujarat up the west. But, we are planning ports, we are planning a large number of infrastructure projects without regard to these ecological risks and vulnerabilities.
Are you therefore telling me today that you believe there isn't enough sensitivity among our policymakers in this era when climate change, many believe, is the biggest challenge of 21st century? Is there a lot of talk and the country is not walking the talk?
No, there is a lot of talk. There is a lot of right talk. In the last 10 years, there is a greater consensus. Many of the things that I said 10 years ago at Copenhagen and Cancun, I was criticized for it. But today we've accepted all those things that were first announced by Dr. Manmohan Singh at Copenhagen, later at Cancun. They became part of the Paris Agreement at 2015. So whatever the criticism was 10 years ago, today the discourse is different because the frequency of natural disasters, both in India and abroad, has increased very significantly. But Rajdeep, the problem remains. Talk is very, very easy. It's walking the talk that's very hard. You can pose as an international champion of environmental leadership, but domestically, what are you doing? You're loosening your forest laws, you're loosening your environmental laws, you're loosening your coastal regulation zones. I mean, so, you can't have double standards. You can't claim to be a Vishwa Guru of the environment, but at home, you give all the signals that in the name of ease of doing business, environmental regulations will be loosened or diluted.
No, it's clear who your words of Vishwa Guru are aimed at, but let's hope at least on the environment, Jairam Ramesh, we can build a necessary political consensus. We cannot afford to have these flash floods year after year in the Western Ghats, disaster after disaster.
There is consensus on the talk, Rajdeep. There is consensus on the talk, but let's have walk the talk now.
Let's have walk the talk. Let's walk the talk when it comes to the climate emergency facing the country, indeed the world at the moment. Jairam Ramesh, appreciate your joining us here on the news today. In the build-up to the climate summit, we'll have many more such conversations. We need to talk about climate change. Shouldn't require a natural disaster or a man-made disaster like Kerala for us to wake up to the reality of it.